If I'm replying to an email to you, for example, Jeff, it'll default to this SLO selection, which is a prompt calibrated for writing emails to internal teammates. If it's a client, it's going to automatically select client. If it's opposing counsel, automatically select that. And then we've got sliders. You can make it more casual and more formal and mess with the length. And then we've got 2 model options for people who prefer one over the other.
Yeah. You got to be in Gmail to utilize a tool like this, right?
Right.
Okay. Wow. Well, hello and welcome to the J. Sterling Hughes Show, where we share how we have built our family law practice from 0 to 25 plus attorneys and 15 million in revenue, and all in the past 10 years. And my purpose here is to document what's working and what's not working, with hopes that you can take that and you can recontextualize it and shorten your success curve. My name is Jeff Hughes and I'm your host. And today we have one of our senior partners with us. He's been a frequent guest here on our show, and he is one of the integral teammates, Jeff Morrell. So Jeff is kind of, I would say, a budding expert in AI, and he is a treasure for our law firm. Across the firm, I don't know how many hours and hours of time you have saved, Jeff, for our staff with the tools that you've created. But in addition to that, we do a all hands on meeting every other week called the Summons. You appear frequently at that, sharing the latest AI advancements. And last week at our yearly event, you shared an incredible presentation on AI present, where we're at today and where it's going within our firm, within the family law practice. And it was awesome. And in there, you went through some of the new developments that are happening in AI as a whole, the broader world of AI with all of these updates and the various tools that are coming out daily. But then what I thought was really interesting that I really wanted to share with our audience was how you took that and you zeroed in and you talked about practical, everyday, day-to-day tools that our firm is using that's saving us loads of time on a daily basis. They're easy to create. You don't got to be some savant in technology to create these things. And so you go through that talk and describe in particular some tools that you are building. You've built out a Chrome extension, which was pretty easy. You even showed in your presentation how to do this with a tool called Replit. And then you concluded with talking about where agents are going. So agents is kind of like the new buzz term in AI, with how to get things done very fast, very efficiently. So you talk about how that's starting to develop and what are some practical coming uses that we're going to have in our practice. So thank you for doing that last week at Sterling Day, and thank you for doing it again here. And I'm going to let you take over from here and just share with us your presentation in AI. Jeff Morrell, ladies and gentlemen, take it away, buddy.
Great. So this is a presentation I gave at our recent Sterling Day annual get-together for the firm, and it breaks it into 3 parts, like past, present, future. So I'll share the deck. All right. So in the beginning, we're going to talk about things that we've learned over the last year, big changes and some big advancements, and then talk about where we're at today, like recapping the tools we have available to us inside Sterling, roll out a couple of new tools that we developed that use artificial intelligence, and talk about the future of what's coming next. So looking back, one of the big changes that I've noticed, and I gave a series of workshop presentations with people, Jeff, you're familiar, going over sort of the basics of artificial intelligence. We did that with almost everyone at the firm, and getting people literate in artificial intelligence and how to use it, because it is such a powerful tool for attorneys, for admins, for people in finance. I mean, it can touch every part of our business. And one of the big things we focused on was prompting or prompt engineering, and talked about all the different various tips and tricks and methods that you can use to enhance the performance of these large language models using different prompting techniques. And so many of those things have been incorporated into the models now. So as an example, we used to always say that if you added think things through step by step, or conduct your reasoning before you give me your answer, those things increase the performance of the language models. And perhaps they still do, but to a much lesser extent, because the models have been trained and calibrated to do that every single time. And so they are thinking things through. And oftentimes you'll ask a question and it'll say, I'm going to think this through step by step. It's clearly in the training data now. And so the models have just gotten so good at understanding your intention. that the need for highly specific prompts, gimmicked prompts, like offering to give it a tip, if it does a good job, those things just don't add the benefit that they used to from my perspective.
I remember whenever ChatGPT just launched, goes back almost 2 years now, and there were job offers for 200,000+ to be a prompt engineer. And that was like this hot new thing, completely gone now.
Right. And I suspect the prompt engineering still exists like at the enterprise level. If you're a bank, for example, and you're processing, you want an LLM processing millions of transactions a day, you need dead bang reliability. Those people still have jobs. I don't think they're nearly as lucrative as they used to be, but I can't say for certain. My sense was that all of those prompting techniques and all that noise, all the things that you had to do to get a good output, one that produced a sample of writing, for example, that you wanted to use, was off-putting to a lot of people. This is a lot of work. I'm just trying to write an email. It's a lot quicker for me to just send it myself.
Yeah.
Another is hallucination issues, which certainly aren't resolved, and then accessibility. So that the frontier models were all behind paywalls. That's really changed. And one of the big responses has been from the AI labs themselves. In addition to incorporating those prompting techniques or improving the models to perform better or better understand intent, ChatGPT, for example, and Claude have added prompt generators where you can say just in casual language what you actually want the prompt to do or what you want the model, how you want the model to perform. It'll write you a really nice structured prompt that probably gets you 95% of the way there. If you're looking for something super reliable or high performance, it's a great place to start. And then Anthropic has this prompt improver that I use all the time. And I haven't sat down and looked at exactly what it's done to change my prompts, but I have looked at the outputs from the improved prompts. And then I've actually put those prompts back through the improver process again and iterated on that. And the results are just great. I just call it magic. It's one of those things you're like, can't believe this is this good.
So Jeff, along these lines, in our family law practice, in yours in particular, for family lawyers, all the options that are available out there, which ones do you find are the most on point for drafting family law-centric documents, letters, forms, whatever?
That's a great question. I think that the answer depends on what day you're asking me. These models are getting updates. Like on the day of Sterling Day, OpenAI released a new version of ChatGPT 4.0. And so it's performing differently than it did prior to that update, very slightly. And if I'm writing an email, I want something that sounds like it was written by a human being, like a relational type, like a client email, for example, or a letter to a judge. I'm going straight to Claude for that. It's much more human sounding, and that kind of shows up in the ghost in the machine that people talk about with LLMs, where it's like it feels like there's a person back there kind of, and Claude has that more than most, but it definitely writes the best letters or emails, personal correspondence, and I tend to gravitate towards ChatGPT 4.0 for legal document writing, like briefs.
Okay, interesting. So most of our listeners are going to be probably pretty familiar with ChatGPT. And so what you're saying is that Gemini works and functions just like ChatGPT, but it's probably got a softer touch, more human sounding in its correspondence that it produces.
That's Anthropic. So that's Claude 3.5 Sonnet is primarily what I'm using.
Okay. And where would a user go? What's the easiest place for them to go find that?
That's at claude.ai.
Okay. All right.
And
cool.
Same deal as OpenAI. I think it's $20 a month. They also have free tiers where you still get access to the top model, but some of the stuff like the prompt improver is not free. That actually has to be done in the developer area. So they hide it from you a little bit. But you can use the top models from OpenAI or Anthropic, Meta from X, Grok, Grok, as opposed to X's model, which is Grok, and Google, all for free. Gemini is a Google model. And I haven't been paying much attention to Google's releases. They never seem to be very good. All I kind of hear is this still is pretty bad. And so I don't spend a ton of time with them, so I'm not knowledgeable on Gemini's product offerings. So I shared some new guidance with our teams. The biggest ones is trust the model. And I used to do a lot of persona prompting, for example, in some of our automations. I would say you're this type of lawyer or an assistant to an attorney, or you work at a law firm. I do a lot less of that and more telling it exactly what it is in this step. So you're a step in an automation and your job is to do X, Y, and Z. And it does so much better doing that I have to spend a lot less time, coming up with those specialized persona prompts. And I think the performance is better too, because it understands, especially in those edge cases where I've got an input and it doesn't quite know what to do with it. Instead of responding like a divorce lawyer or a legal assistant or something like that, it's actually giving and hallucinating perhaps. It's actually providing feedback on why it can't or something like that. So they're performing so much better that you can be honest with it in terms of what you are doing and what you want it to do. And you just don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to convey your meaning because it's just better at divining it.
Yeah, interesting. I used to spend all kinds of time trying to get the right persona, describing who they were, how long their career was, all that sort of stuff.
I used to run tests with, you're a lawyer with 10 years of experience, with 5 years, with 15 years, all the way up, I think, to 50. And you get slightly different outputs, but it's just what a waste of time now.
Yeah.
Because you can do more with a couple of examples than you could ever do with that persona prompting.
Wow.
At least for style type, when you're trying to guide the style of the output,
right?
Like tone or length or the specific content or structure, any of those things. Examples go so far. And hallucination is another one that's not gone by any means, but has gotten so much better. They used to make stuff up constantly, it felt like, and I really couldn't trust anything that it said. And even in the context of like an email bot where it's generating an email, invent information about the client. Just doesn't do that anymore. So I still wouldn't trust it for a minute to quote a case law or a statute accurately.
Yeah.
You can ground it with, RAG techniques or with retrieval by giving it a knowledge base.
What does that mean? You could say, look in the Wisconsin statutes, blah, 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 and derive your answer from within these statutes. That's what you mean by grounding?
Right. So essentially, yeah. So you can provide it PDFs or text documents or most formats of documentation, depending on how you have it set up, so that it has that statute, for example. Let's say we load in Wisconsin 767, which is our divorce laws, governing custody and placement and divorce. Add that to the assistant as a resource that it can draw on when it's asked a question about the law or about 767, or where its response might include something that has to do with the statute.
Yeah.
And so when you ask it a question like, what's the Wisconsin statute that says that child support is based on gross income and not net, then it can go reference those materials, give you an answer, and actually source it as well. That really reduces hallucination, but doesn't mean it's 100% accurate. There's, and I've made some that I haven't been able to get a wrong answer out of. And I've had other ones that I can find answers almost all the time. So it really depends on how you configure it and the underlying technology. Pinecone has an assistance product that is probably the best.
Got it.
In terms of plug and play.
All right, what's next?
Then getting into a review of our current tools and some new tools.
For listeners, this is the real practical nitty-gritty stuff that we have actually implemented that saves us time and helps us increase our service to our clients, right?
Right.
Okay. So walk us through what you've done there, because this is really cool stuff. I know a lot of members of our teammates on the lawyer side especially have been just exuberant about this stuff that you've created. Yeah, this tool in particular, I think I made it about a year ago. It's gotten a ton of use, more than I ever expected. It's our affidavit tool for those that are listening.
Right. It's called SLO Affidavit. It's a channel in Slack.
Okay.
And it's very low tech. It's set up with a no-code backend through Zapier. It's a very basic automation. And when you look at someone's workflow, like take Michelle Gordon, one of our attorneys, for example, she'll write up all the notes from a hearing, for example, to give to her paralegal, who then takes that and writes a proposed order to provide to the court. So that's just a standard workflow. Every lawyer at our firm does that pretty much. And then the paralegal sends that back to the attorney to respond, or to review it rather. And we can circumvent that process. Just take your notes, the same ones you would have given to your paralegal, and stick it in here. And it'll generate the text of the body of the proposed order in a format and in like the kind of tone and length and style that we typically use here at Sterling, based on examples that it's drawing from. And it'll do the same thing for affidavits or stipulations, letters to court officials or opposing counsels, things like that, where an attorney would be tasking that work to a paralegal. The paralegal can just take those notes, drop it in here, get an answer, or the attorney can.
Yeah. Cool.
And I've done it as simple as pasting in like a text message exchange or a screenshot of text messages with my client where they're explaining what the agreement is they came to with their spouse and say, make a stipulation for this, and it handles all the work.
Well, hello, Jeff here. My team and I put out a weekly newsletter designed for family law practitioners to help you grow and build your practice. So if you go to my website at jsterlinghughes.com, that's Hughes, that's jsterlinghughes.com, and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. And what I will do for you there is I will send you weekly content to help you build and grow your practice, as well as news and developments in the greater world of family law. Thank you, and back to the show. With an attorney who maybe doesn't even have the beginning level of expertise to produce this, would a simple shortcut be to go to Google's Notebook LM tool and put in the recording and the information into that, as well as some sample orders, and say, produce me an order like this?
I haven't tested Notebook LM for that use case. I don't see why not. Notebook LM seems to have no end to its use. I mean, for Sterling Day itself, I loaded in all of the emails and the flyers that we had, and I used it throughout the day and the day before. Like, I couldn't remember the hotel, and I was like, what hotel is Sterling Day at? What's on the agenda after lunch? Things like that. I kept coming back to it to get information instead of having to go comb through my email. Even small stuff like that, I find good use cases for it.
Yeah.
But that'd be a great place to start. But on a simple level, if you just paste in 2 or 3 orders or affidavits that you've drafted before and say, I want you to write an affidavit just like these, and here are the facts.
Just put that in the ChatGPT.
Right.
All right.
And you can improve the performance of that, for example, by like reducing the tasks. Say like, I don't want you to do any of the captions or the headers because it's going to come to you in a text format. You got to copy and paste it. It's all in Markdown, so you have to get rid of all these asterisks and hashtags. Just focus on the content of the affidavit, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and making the allegations that you're writing in the affidavit. It doesn't need to waste its time or its token allotment writing all of this extraneous stuff that you're not going to use anyway.
Yeah.
Keep it focused. I like doing that. So this was a reminder for our team that this is out there in case they haven't used it, because we've got new employees. We've got employees who weren't at the meetings where we announced these things or showed people how to use them. So a little bit of re-instruction goes a long way. We've also made a series of GPTs, custom GPTs that attorneys and administrative professionals at our firm can use. And these are really easy to make. I don't even think you need a paid account anymore to create a custom GPT. And the easiest way to explain it is it's a reusable prompt, and then you have some additional things you can add to it, like a knowledge base. So your Notebook LM example, a custom GPT is a really great example of how you can do that. You can put those examples in the prompt. You can put your any grounded knowledge, like the statutes or whatever you want to put in there in the knowledge base, and you can give it tools. So for example, you can give it the ability to like browse the web or make images if that was something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we'll run through one of them. We have workflow meetings every week between an attorney and their paralegal, where you run through every single one of your cases and you address a couple of different things. Usually you're outlining next steps for that case, like what needs to happen to move that case forward. I said this during Sterling Day. All of my biggest use cases for AI have been in places where I'm deficient. I'm making up for skills that I'm lacking in. And my memory isn't the best. I'm just not good with small details and remembering little things. And I'll be in a meeting with my paralegal, Claire, and I'll say, yeah, I'm going to take care of that today. And as soon as those words have left my mouth, they've also left my memory, definitely when the meeting's over. And so having a recording of it is great. Having a transcript of it is great. But one step beyond that would be having it all structured and written out for me in a nice way. So I can take the transcript, paste it right into this GPT, and then get action items for me. I get action items for my paralegal. Anything that we deferred, like I said, we'll take that up next week, or I'm just waiting on a response before I know, because I've got 3 directions I could go with the case, and I'm waiting on a response from a client or an opposing counsel to decide what that next step is going to be. So make sure that we circle back to those things next week, and then it will produce a nice Word document for you afterwards that's nicely formatted and has some styling elements as well. Consult Notes was another one that I made specifically for Sterling Day. And CSS Transcribed is a very similar product, which is you take a transcript of a consultation or of CSS was our intake team, their phone call intake call with a potential client or an existing client, and then get structured notes. They have a form that they fill out and they copy and paste it into our CRM. And instead of having to fill that form out, have an AI do it, right? So you just provide the transcript and then it does its best to populate all of those fields. For the consult notes, similar concepts. So I'll take a transcript of my consultation, paste it in there, and then it'll give me the same exact structure every time, a list of things, details that would be useful for me to know, for my paralegal to know in case the client funds, and for our intake and follow-up teams to know what's going on with that case.
So the console notes are something that you get out of the console, upload the recording, and then those notes go right into the CRM.
Yeah, it's still a copy and paste process.
Okay.
I mean, you certainly could. You could even build into your custom GPT a tool use that this would be difficult to set up unless you own your own business, because you have to get, so like if I wanted to do this, I would have to have API access to our CRM, which has some security issues, but you could set it up so it's got a tool use that it goes into our CRM and adds these notes to the appropriate field. You could just build that in and it'd ask you, like, you want me to populate all of these notes into Salesforce? And you'd say, yep. And then it would go and do it. One of the issues that we faced is, how do we bring AI to everyone? We could pay for a subscription for everyone, $20 or $30 a month for a team plan. Well, not everyone likes ChatGPT. Some people, like Ellen Rodman, for example, likes Claude. She doesn't like ChatGPT at all.
Yeah.
And so, all right, we've got varying licenses out there that we're paying for. And when we have a team member separation, we've got to remember to go remove that license, and potentially maybe a lot of our firm not actually using their license. So it's just money down the drain. And then people have privacy security concerns as well. When you're using the consumer facing ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other models, they're not calibrated in any way for our use cases. And so the question was, how do we bring it to everybody? And so what we did was made an application within Slack that, I'm stealing the OpenAI logo. I hope I'm not in trouble for that. Just called GPT, and you can use it the same way you would use anything else in Slack. You can mention it. You can bring it into direct messages. You can have it as a participant in a channel, and you can talk to it one-on-one to get answers to your questions, to have it weigh in on existing conversations. I knew I was onto something when I was testing this a few months ago, and the Fox team was talking about a dodgeball competition they wanted to have. And I think it was Rebecca asked GPT to sort everyone into two teams and give them funny team names. And everyone thought that was hilarious. And I'm like, this is a good use case, even though it's for fun here. We can get people to use this.
Yeah.
And so bringing it where people are already doing their work was something I wanted to solve for. And so this does that. They don't have to go somewhere. They don't have to have a membership or a subscription. We've got to guarantee that this is, our data isn't being stored or used by OpenAI, because it's being run through their API, which helps us solve some privacy concerns as well. And we're only paying for what we use. So it's a really useful tool. And it's got some stuff added to it, and we can keep improving it on it and iterating over time. This morning, for example, I sent you that screenshot. I've added our benefits guide to it. So now it's also our benefits expert.
Oh,
People
wow.
have that, they can go ask about our benefits.
Yeah, our HR director was pretty happy about that.
I think anything that takes a little bit of a load off of her team,
Yeah,
probably appreciated.
Especially this time of year, it's a big win.
Right. And you only have so much time to do open enrollment. So
very good.
That's pretty exciting. A preview of what was next for this is the SLO affidavit tool that I was talking about. I'm going to incorporate that right there into the bot so that it's faster. You can respond to it, because in its current iteration, you just get a draft and then you can't do anything with it. Say like, make this change to that, and then have it do it.
Yeah.
It's just not set up to do that. This will be. And we can do anything we want really after that. Looking up client information, assigning tasks, things like that.
Well, cool. Anything else on this? Or
the other thing we introduced was a Chrome extension that we're rolling out, calling it Sterling Draft. And it's just this little Sterling logo that sits in your email, and we'll push that to everyone's computers. And then it brings up a little pop-up like this that you can use to write or respond to emails. And it's set up to automatically, for example, if I'm replying to an email to you, for example, Jeff, it'll default to this SLO selection, which is a prompt calibrated for writing emails to internal teammates. If it's a client, it's going to automatically select client. And if it's opposing counsel, automatically select that. And then we've got sliders. You can make it more casual and more formal and mess with the length. And then we've got 2 model options for people who prefer one over the other.
Yeah. You got to be in Gmail to utilize a tool like this, right?
Right.
Okay. Wow. When does that launch?
Nate has it. So we're submitting it to Google for approval, even though it's an internal tool and only for people from our company. Google still has to approve it. So we're just waiting on the approval.
Okay. Very cool. How hard was it to build? Can someone without a whole lot of technical expertise build this?
Yeah, I don't have any technical expertise and I built the whole thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There's so many tools out now to develop your own stuff. Really complicated stuff if you want to without any real knowledge. Now, if you want to build like a full social media website, that's a taller ask, but something smaller like this that's purpose-driven and just internal, pretty darn easy. Cursor AI is probably this one I use primarily. Replit Agent is really good, and V0 by Vercel is supposed to be very good. I only messed with it once a few months ago, but that seems to be another favorite. But there's new ones of these popping up all over the place, and they're either coding assistants or agents that actually go and execute things on your behalf. And Replit's really nice because it lets you actually deploy it right there. You don't have to like provisioning a server for yourself. That sounded and was really intimidating for me, and Replit takes care of it for you, which is really nice.
That's cool. Interesting.
So the last thing we talked about is the future, and that's agents, really. That's what everyone's talking about. And we're going to go through agents, computer use, type agents, and look at a couple of things that we developed for a demonstration for Sterling Day. Agents are really just large language models paired with tools. That's the basic concept. So you take a language model and you say, I want you to do these tasks, and you've got these tools to help you do these tasks. And that might be something like booking an appointment, so it's got access to your calendar. It might be access to your CRM or a database. It might be checking the weather. Providing an agent some tools can go a long way to making it more performant, because if you ask an LLM what the weather is, it can't tell you. It doesn't have any way to look it up, right? So you gotta give it those tools. And the next step, the next iteration of that is LLMs that can either use your computer or your web browser to go and do things on their own. Anthropic released one called Claude with computer use. I've tested it out. I asked it to go download a picture of a cat. It was like a suggested prompt, and it wasn't very good. It took about 10 or 12 minutes, and I think it cost like 40 or 50 cents just to do that. Anthropic rolled that out saying, this is not going to be that good. It's for you guys to figure out how people will actually use it. But you can imagine a future where you're just like, hey, fill out these health insurance forms for me, and you go to lunch. You know, you don't really have to worry about it. So that's an exciting future I'm looking forward to. And a lot of people were surprised that we actually have agents already at Sterling. One of them is our phone answering service. So if you call Sterling on a weekend, we don't have people staffed up to answer the phones. And we used to pass that off to a third-party company, vendor. And we've replaced that now with Intelligence Agent, and has handled over 3,000 phone calls at this point for a total cost for us for $456, whereas we would have been paying over $10,000 during that period of time for humans to do it.
And the accuracy is better. So it's incredible. It's incredible. That was yours, Jeff. I'm crediting you for that. That was for us.
That was a fun project to work on, and it's still fun to see, like every once in a while we get a systems ticket saying that it malfunctioned in some way, and then we go in and make our adjustments, and it just gets better and better.
Yeah.
And those voice models keep getting better and better. So it's interesting to see, people who recognize right away that it's an AI, but they're used to the traditional voice recognition phone trees, and they just say agent or customer service and don't realize you can just talk to it like a normal person. And then some people don't seem to ever notice or don't care.
Wow. Well, Jeff, this has been terrific. Thank you for walking through this again. I know you did this last Friday at our Sterling Day, but to go through it again, I'm so grateful. So
happy to do it.
Thank you for sharing that.